Welcome everybody to another episode 196. We're closing in to 200 episodes. Yeah, that's insane. I am the most psychopathic person I know. Just a mess of a human. Just an absolute sociopath. That's who I am. I'm a sociopath that gets on here twice a month, twice a week, 8 times a month, and I just talk about nothing important. I cover no serious topics. I have laughed very hard at very inappropriate things. I've cried at inappropriate things. I've been honest. I've shared funny stories. We are closing into 200 episodes, and I cannot thank all you people enough. Just a few things first before we get into this podcast. I have a few things I want to cover. One is what's going on top of my head right now. But first thing I want to cover is I just want to give a big thank you to everybody who has shown so much love on the podcast, whether it be listening to it on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you listen to it, whether it's watching the video. The video is something that is a huge bonus. People, I don't know, a lot of people don't do podcasts, but a lot of people do listen to podcasts, and a lot of people, I would say the majority of people don't watch them. When I got into the podcast world, I didn't know what I was doing, right? I had no idea. I didn't even think about doing a podcast without video because the first podcast I ever listened to, I don't know if you can even call it a podcast. I guess it would be like a radio show. Was The Breakfast Club with Charlamagne the God. I listened to that, DJ Envy and Angela, and I listened to that podcast all the time with video though. And I thought that was such a cool aspect of it. I liked seeing the rappers they had on, the lawyers they had on, anybody who was on. I like seeing them visually. It made the episode so much better. It made the experience more fun. I just enjoyed seeing them and seeing them interact with each other rather than just listening. And then I found Rogan, started listening to Joe Rogan more. So everything for podcasting has always been a very visualizing thing for me. So when I started this podcast, I knew that I wanted to go visual. I knew I wanted a YouTube version. I didn't even think about not having it. It was going to happen. And that is an aspect of podcasting it's more difficult. I remember when I first started this podcast, me and my buddy, I reached out to him because he's worked on podcasts before. He kind of had an idea how to do video editing, and I had no idea. I had literally zero idea. So I reached out to him, and the most difficult thing for us to do for the podcast was editing the video. It was such a not a difficult thing, but it was a complicated thing. It was a wrench in the plans that we didn't need. Like I could have just stuck to audio. But that's one of the things that I love most about this podcast is the video setup, is my table I made with my hands, is the setup I have behind me. I like that. I like that aspect of the podcast. It's something that I'm going to continue in the future, and we will expand the podcast. It's going to come. It's going to eventually happen. I'm just at a time in my life right now where I feel like I really have to focus on a few things. I had to focus on graduating college. I'm recording this on Wednesday. I have a summer class today. And then I have 3 classes during the fall, and then I'm graduating. Once I graduate, I think I can start moving on a little bit more. Right now I'm just focusing on investing, saving, and trying to build things on the side. Right now, the thing I'm building is just a podcast, and I have a few ideas that I'm knocking around in my head all the time. But right now, it's just a podcast. This is my bread and butter. This is the most consistent thing I have in my life. It's not a person. It keeps my days on track. Tuesday or Monday and Wednesday I record. I upload Tuesday and Thursday. It's so consistent. I love it. It keeps me sane. And for the hundreds of people out there that do listen to my podcast every month, it keeps you sane. At least it keeps you to some sort of schedule. And it's because of that why I continue to do it, because people do watch, people do listen, and people do say stuff to me outside of just online. I get, when it's the coolest thing is when people come up to me in reality, in real life, and they bring up an episode, or they talk about this, or they say they like this, or the best is when people say they're going to watch it, or that they discovered it. All that stuff, it means a lot to me, and I couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you so much. Episode 200 is just going to be a normal episode. I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm not going to throw a party. I'm not going to, do anything nuts. It's just going to be a normal episode. I'm just going to do what I always do. I'm going to get on and just talk to you guys, because that's what we do. That's how we roll here on the Michael Lab Show. So thank you. A few things. One more thing I want to get into before I get into 7 wicked popes and the terrible things they did. My hair. So I have decided within the past 3 weeks, I've decided to grow my hair out. Not just grow it out a little bit, but grow it out to, I want to kind of look like Jason Momoa. A part of me kind of want to look like Jason Momoa. I had a family gathering this past weekend, and the thing I noticed the most at the family gathering is people lose their hair. There's no way around it. You're going to lose your hair. I have always had short hair. I've always had trimmed hair. I've always had a buzz cut or a fade, whatever. I always have had long hair. And I want to switch that, or short hair. I want to switch that up. I want to get long hair. I haven't said this to anybody. I've said it a few times to my girlfriend, but I want long hair, down to my down to my shoulder hair. I want to get a beard. I kind of want to look like Aquaman a little bit. And I know it's kind of insane. I'm not going to cut my hair for a while. I might even trim it up a little bit on my birthday. That's not for another 4 months. But I want to get that. It sounds crazy because I never ever expected me to want this, but I kind of want that long, almost bun hair. I think it's really cool. I don't know. I really like it. I think it could definitely change my personality, or I think it would fit my personality more. I've been reading a lot of, not a lot, but I've been reading a book on the Soviet Union, or, I've been reading a book by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who is he's a novelist. He's a Russian novelist. He fought for the Red Army, in I think the teens. I want to say, he was born in 1918. So in the 30s, mid 30s, he got arrested by Russia, at the time ruled by, Stalin, I believe, or Lenin. I'm not 100% sure on that. Anyways, I've been reading a lot about Russian literature. And I read a lot about philosophy. I read a lot about science. And I like to think I am, I consider myself somebody who's a very curious person, and I love learning. And I love listening to theories, things that I just do not agree with at all. Actually, one of my buddies, no, this is no shade at all, but one of my buddies, he went ahead, we had a great conversation. He's a preacher, right? He's a preacher. And he's a great guy. And I've done episodes where I just trash on faith or trash on religion. But fundamentally, I grew up Catholic. I know the world of church. I know church people. I know how they roll. I know that world, right? It's not foreign to me. And he's a young guy. He's probably 29, 30 years old. And we had a great conversation. I was reading a book called The 12 Rules for Life, 12 More Rules for Life by Dr. Jordan Peterson, who is a psychologist, but he's also very religious. A lot of his work is he takes stories from the Bible and he relates it to philosophy. He breaks down a lot of Carl Jung, Friedrich Nietzsche, Kierkegaard. A lot of these guys that the philosophy is kind of built around religion. Religion is kind of the underpinning of the whole world. But I was reading him, and we had a great conversation about faith, and I agreed with a lot of things he said. But the thing I didn't agree with him is I don't believe in a God. I don't believe in a Jesus. I believe I I believe in biology and science. Different times in my life that might switch. It could easily switch. But right now in my life, I don't believe in a God. I don't believe that a God created the world. I think living a life where, as if a God is real, is very valuable. I think if you live a life where, it's kind of like the old saying where live a life, or don't say things that you wouldn't say around your grandma or your mother. And I think that's the underpinnings of that are very religious. If you live your life like you are constantly being watched, which is essentially what being having a relationship with your church is, you're living a life, you're constantly doing things that won't be shamed by your God. You're constantly doing things that would get a check from your God. All of those things are good. I think if you live a life and you follow certain rules and certain faiths, and you obviously don't follow some like extremist ideas, like, in like the Islamic world of the way that women are not treated equal. If you leave some behind, but if you take on some, if you genuinely live a life as if a God exists, I think that's a good life, because it adds a moral compass. There's this whole idea in philosophy where, is morality biology? Is the idea is ethics? Is that ingrained into our DNA? Is that part of our genetics? Is that part of being a human being? Or is our culture so tied in with faith, with religion, that it has molded us to have a moral compass? And you don't know. People don't really know. You see moral compasses in some animals, right? In elephants, you see it all the time, where they come back and they visit their elephants who passed away. You see it in chimps at times, but then you also don't see it at all in a lot of other creatures. And it's, the empathy. Anyways, we had a great discussion about faith. It led to him kind of walking away like, you should come to my church. And this is right around Easter. You should come to my gospel, or my gathering, or whatever it is. And I didn't say no. I said, maybe, but I know I won't go, because I'm not in the point of my life where I want to learn about religion. That's another thing, is like, you shouldn't feel guilt for that. Like, if you don't want to learn about a certain thing, I don't think you should have to. But that's really, that's really closely tied into ignorance. You don't want to play ignorant parts and just ignorance is bliss. You should still learn about it, I think. But if you know a little bit about it and you decide you don't want to, I think that's okay. But then again, who the hell am I to tell you what is and what's not okay? Whatever. Actually, don't even listen to me. Turn off the podcast. Who cares what I say? But anyways, we had a fantastic discussion. It basically was, the Christian faith is number one, right? According to this gentleman. And, who's going to argue with him? I mean, how can you argue that when there is, how many Christians in the world? Yeah. So how can you argue with somebody, say that their faith is wrong, when 2.382 billion people agree? 1.193 billion. So 31% of the whole world is Christian. 15.58% is atheist. So how can you argue with someone like that? I don't think you can. I think it would be a misstepping for you to do. He bought me these two books. I'm gonna eventually read them. I've been reading a lot about Russian literature, which is it's really fascinating to be approached by a gentleman like this at a time where I'm reading about something that is so dark, is so anti-religion, is so how the hell is there a God? How can a God exist when you're reading about these things that happened in the Gulag? I finished a documentary on concentration camps. How can a God exist when evil like that is around? What else did I watch? I've been watching like Netflix documentaries on like Syria, or the Gaza Strip. How can there be this all-powering person who made the world, who made evil, who made good, but how can that exist? You know, it's a very conflicting thought experiment. So I'm kind of caught in this situation where I'm reading about this just brutality of the Bolsheviks in, you know, the early 20th century in Russia, the Tsar just being absolutely slaughtered by the Bolsheviks, by the head, but you know, the head of the Bolsheviks was Lenin. How can this exist? You know, and it's very conflicting for me because I know a lot of people who are very faithful, and I know a lot of people who are very, you know, not faithful, because I'm a faithful person, not like in a God, but in the people I love, in the things I believe in. But how can, faithful in the sense of religion? So I always see like these two conflicting sides, and they're both very powerful. You know, if you speak to somebody who has, you know, died on an operating table and came back to life, or if you met someone who's been right on the ledge of death and came back, you hear this idea of like, there has to be a God. There has to be, because I should have been dead. But then in my head, very Sam Harris like, I'm like, no, you didn't die because your heart kept beating, your brain kept functioning, not because of God, but because of biology. But that doesn't make you feel good, right? It's not a faith-driven thing, right? So I hear that. I hear these beautiful stories of people who, you know, see the light and they come back from the light and they have beautiful experiences with Jesus. They pray for something to happen and it happens, and they automatically transfer that result. They compare that result is an extension because of what they did when they were on their knees praying to Jesus. Now that's fine, that's good and all, but then there's also coincidences. There's also just, you know, determinism versus free will, which is a completely different, complicated issue. It's the thing that always strikes me the most is when young kids die, when babies die at birth, when people pass away when they have done nothing wrong. That's the one that made me turn from faith quick when I was a young child. Was that I didn't like that. I could not deal with that idea that people who've committed horrible crimes, rape, murder, arson, people who have ruined other people's lives, beaten women, whatever, killed babies, they didn't die. They didn't die. They're alive. Jesus kept them alive. Jesus thought they were worth something. Whereas little kids who have caused no harm, who have so much potential, like a little battery that's just been out of the package, they have so much, they can power on so many things, they can make so many people's worlds that much better, but they get hit by a car, or their heart stops beating, or they're diagnosed with terminal cancer at the age of 3. I could not deal with that. I don't know if I was too young to rationalize that, but even now I'm sitting here right in front of the camera on a podcast saying I cannot accept that Jesus is real, if that is real. And you know, the rebuttal is, well, sacrifice. You know, people have to be tested. Well, I disagree with that too. I don't think a mom or a father should be tested when they have to bury their own kid. I don't care. There's no such thing as testing one's faith over something like that. That is pure evil. And if a God exists and a God allows that to happen, that God should be sent to hell. That's how I feel about it, because it's wrong. There's nothing good about that. In my opinion, what that is just, that's reality. That's harsh. I'm not saying it's good, but that's harsh. People die. Kids die, babies die. But to say that it's because of God, I think that's blasphemy. That's disgusting to me. But like I said before, I think living a life as if God is real can bring a lot of benefits. You know, we live in a country where God is completely intertwined with everything we do, and under God. You know, our Constitution, our I think even our Declaration of Independence from the United Kingdom, or from Britain. Even our Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God. You know, there's a lot of intertwining of religion in this country. But But I got these books, and at the same time, I'm reading about Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who just went through hell. And how can hell and paradise exist commingle with each other? Maybe it's that whole Japanese thing where, yin yang, or I think it's yin and yang. Gotta have, in order to have a little bit of, you can't just have evil and good. You gotta have balance. What makes good is when you have evil, so the good is even better. And what makes evil a little bit less painful is a little bit of good. Although I do believe in that, I think there's times where if God is real, he goes on vacation too often. You know what I mean? If Jesus is a real thing, if he forgot to set his alarm clock for a few decades, that's just the truth. He spent too much time at the beach during the, late to mid 40s, or late 30s to mid 40s in the 20th century. He forgot to set his alarm clock in the early 20th century, all of the 20th century, and all of time of human history. He totally forgot about the Mongols. He forgot to come back. He missed his flight home. Come on, Jesus, you can't be doing shit like that, brother. It's a full-time job, man. Oh, man. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I hope that doesn't offend people. That's just how I feel about it. I'll read them. It's fine. I'll read them. I'm a skeptic, and the subtitle of the book is like something about being a skeptic. So I'm a skeptic person. I'm not one to believe quickly. I think people operate in a very selfish manner, and I think that's natural. I think that's human nature. I think people want to get ahead, but I'm definitely a skeptic. I've disbanded my faith a long time ago, and I don't plan on going back. I'm always challenged with this idea though in my head of like, what if, I can't, I always play this. Ugh, it's terrible. My brain's kind of messed up if you haven't been able to tell after 100. I was thinking about this. I gotta be crazy. I have to be crazy. I was thinking about this. I was at the party and I walked away from my aunt and I'm like, I finally graduated. And like, Jesus Christ, I'm just not doing enough. I'm just not doing enough. I never feel like I'm doing anything ever. And she said, you're doing more than everybody your age, or the most people. You're doing more than most people do in the 30s. So she says something like that. That really made me. It kind of made me sad because I suck at noticing my accomplishments, and because I don't believe I have any. It's weird because if I'm kind of feeling down and out, if one compliment from my girl, my whole world is literally shifted. I feel like Superman. Like, if you think you can beat me, I will demolish you and take your head and rub it into the dirt. Like, I will beat you. And it won't even be a challenge. And I think that's something that I need to fix about myself. I need to let more of myself be proud of me, of who I am. Because I don't do that. I do not do that. And I appreciate what she said. That really did mean a lot. And she's my aunt, and I'm not going to say her name. But what you said that day it really did help me. It really did help me. And because the fact that I'm doing a podcast 2 days a week, it's kind of psychotic. I do it out of the corner of my bedroom. I've invested over $2,000 worth of equipment. It's kind of crazy. And for what? For what? Most people are looking at for what. I just do it because I like it, and it could become something, but who the hell knows? And I think people need to do that. I think people need to do that more. And I say this every episode, and I don't want to sound like Gary Vaynerchuk. I want to sound like me. I want to sound like Michael. I want to tell people you don't have everything and this is coming from me. And I love money. I love making money. I've always loved making money. I've cut lawnmower, or I've never cut lawns. I've shoveled people's driveways. I've dog sat. I've picked up dog poop. I've sold newspapers. I've dishwashed. I've served. I've bussed. I've managed. I've done a lot of things to make money. I love making money. I've been making money on my own since I was 16 years old. The day 9 months, I got my license. 3 months later, I was working. So I love money. But I've come to realize that not everything you do can just be around money. Now, if money is a result, don't say no. Don't say no to it. But don't do things just because the outcome is a higher income. The outcome is a higher income. You got to do things in your life that you do just because you enjoy them. And if you don't do that, you're going to suffer. You're going to fail a lot by doing it. For the podcast, that's what it is. I make a little bit. When I say a little bit of money, I mean just like a little bit of money. Like you can't pay rent a month with it. That's just the truth. But I love doing it, and I don't think I don't know. Maybe people do, and I just don't. 68.89. I don't think I talk to people enough about it. But I think a lot of people could be a lot happier if you do things that you love to do. But you still need a stream of income, right? So I still work, I invest, I still have money coming in, but you got to do things that you love. But I just don't know how God can be a real thing when you hear these stories about just the nightmares of stories. And I feel like I'm a little crazy. I got to be a little crazy just do this thing day in and day out. And that's fine. A little bit of crazy is fine. I think it keeps people on their toes. Yeah, so that's why I want long hair. I want long hair because I want to kind of look like a fly. I don't know why that's so funny, but I want to look smarter. It sounds so stupid, but I want longer hair. I want a beard. I want to start smoking cigarettes. I won't start smoking cigarettes, but have a cigarette here and there. Just kidding, I won't do that. But I think it's time for me to just change up my look. And I'm gonna change up my look. And I'm gonna get long hair. I'm gonna get a beard. I'm gonna look cool, dude. I'm gonna look so cool, dude. I'm gonna look totally awesome, man. Or not. Or I just look like a crazy person, a homeless person. But I kind of look like Jason Momoa. I don't have that body type. I might get that body type. Take a little steroids, you know what I mean? Or not. Probably not gonna take steroids. But steroids would be sweet. I wouldn't mind taking a little juice. Put it in my arm. But I have this class yesterday for people listening, and it is a internship class, business experience. I don't really know what to expect, but I do know I had to read a book. All these books I've read, I don't even, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 9, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. That's about 39 books right there. Jesus Christ, that is so sad. I have 2 books here that somebody gave me who just recently passed away. 29 years old. That really did mess me up. I don't want to talk about it on air, but my last episode I kind of talked about a little bit at the end. People who, take care of people who are closest to you. Take care of people who are quiet. You just be kind to everybody. Just be kind to everybody. Be kind to everybody. You're like, don't be a dick anymore. Just be nice to everybody because you have no idea what people are going through. And let me tell you this right now. Coronavirus has been a disaster, right? It's been horrible for the whole country. People are losing their jobs. People are dead of COVID or have long-term symptoms of COVID. We don't really know what it's doing per se to people. But here's one that people don't talk about enough, and here's one that people are not going to talk about, because it may not affect them personally, but it does affect me somewhat personally. The thing that coronavirus has done for a lot of people, especially. It's had a lot of people who are sober, people who struggle with alcohol, who cannot drink alcohol, who cannot do drugs, cannot smoke weed. I joke about smoking cigarettes all the time, but some people are addicts and they cannot put them down. And that leads to a lot of other things. I've never been an addict of alcohol. I had 2 White Claws on Sunday, and I didn't even want the second one. I just had it because we're going on a walk. I was like, screw it, I'll have it. But like, I don't drink. I'm not an addict. I don't know how I'm not an addict. Honestly, I feel like I am, but I'm not. Praise the Lord. I would be the worst addict. I'd be dead. Definitely, I'd be dead. Or not. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. I probably shouldn't say things like that. It's probably very disheartening to say. It's probably rude to say. Probably shouldn't say it. I apologize. But as COVID has torn people apart who struggle with stuff like that. There's people I know who have been sober for 5+ years who started drinking and smoking during this lockdown, and it ruined a lot of people. It caused a lot of people to die. And it's the unspoken reality of COVID lockdown. And it's one that when we were keeping these very aggressive lockdowns in place, that I don't think we really cared about. That I don't think people really cared about. And it's kind of sad. We kind of stopped. We didn't really talk about suicide. We didn't talk about ODing. We didn't talk about relapsing. We didn't talk about how a lot of these AA meetings weren't in person anymore. They could not be in person anymore. How people had to just sit there on Zoom and talk to people like this. Yeah, so I'm not feeling too good this week. But no, you need a hug, bro. Like, you need a hug. But we couldn't hug because COVID. I don't know. It's a hard situation. I'm happy I'm not in a position of power when it comes to politics, so I didn't have to make those decisions. But I think there was I wish there was a way that we could keep people safe, but also allow people to hold each other and touch each other and feel human touch. Because I think a lot of people would still be alive to this day. I think a lot of people would be alive, and I think a lot of people would be sober still. I think a lot of people wouldn't be dabbling in things when they know they can't dabble in. Because some people just cannot do it, and that's the truth. And that's something I think people need to be much more aware of whenever we do experience, because we will experience another one of these. We will. It's kind of the world we live in. You will have another lockdown. You will have another situation where a disease gets out, and especially with COVID, dude, all this stuff is happening right now. It's kind of crazy. Like this whole Wuhan lab stuff is coming out, like this is Fauci facing calls for resignation after shifting position on probe on Wuhan lab. Like, this is insane. Like, this is so insane to me. Like, this is, what are we doing here? Like, how do we just deny this stuff? Like, Rogan has been talking about this all year, and now we have articles finally saying that, it could have came from a lab. But we refuse to say that because Donald Trump was calling it the Wuhan virus. Are you just going to let China go away? Republican lawmakers are calling for Dr. Anthony Fauci to be fired amid his litany of shifting opinions of the COVID. Its origin and stance on an investigation in Wuhan Institute of Virology. Fauci is coming under fire from congressional Republicans who point to his admission that the NIH earmarked $600,000 to the Wuhan Institute of Virology to study the possibility that coronavirus could be transmitted to humans. He told members of a House Appropriations Subcommittee on Tuesday that the money was provided to the lab through a nonprofit EcoHealth Alliance and funded a modest collaboration with very respectable Chinese scientists who were world experts of coronavirus, end quote. By the way, China, nothing about them is safe. It's China. They're a communist country. Why do we forget? China is not a good country. They have educational camps right now with Uyghur Muslims, which are essentially concentration camps. I mean, obviously not nearly as like deadly, but they're forcing these people to change their ideologies because they don't like the way they believe. It's a path that could lead to concentration camps. I'm not going to say that's not true. It could. It's a communist country. You can't do anything. If you speak out on China, you're done. You're dead. You're dead. You're gone. Bye. People don't realize you're not dealing with a democracy. You're dealing with a communist country, led by a communist leader, led by people who are great people, but they're tricked into this communist way of thinking. And for anybody who thinks that communist works, like, it does not work. I don't understand, like, this idea that communism works. Like, let's just look at all the countries that have tried communism. It doesn't work. People die. People are power hungry. They want to move up the hierarchy. They would do whatever the F it takes. But Fauci empathetically denied that the money went towards so-called, quote, gain-of-function research, which he described as taking a virus that could infect humans and making it either more transmissible or pathogenic for human. What is going on? I don't care. I know that. Fauci clashed with Senator Rand Paul earlier this month when the Kentucky Republican pushed him on whether the federal agency he heads helped fund, quote, gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab. Senator Paul, with all due respect, you're entirely and completely incorrect. The NIH has never and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute, Fauci said during the May 11th hearing on Capitol Hill. Paul began to say, quote, government scientists like yourself who favor gain function, end quote, but Fauci interrupted, I don't favor gain of function research in China. You are saying things that are incorrect. Representative Warren Davison introduced the Fauci Incompetence Requires Early Dismissal Act. Wait, what? Warren Davison, who's a Republican out of Ohio, introduced the Fauci Incompetence Requires Early Dismissal Act. Hilarious name. By the way, I don't hate Fauci. I think what Fauci had to do was incredibly hard, and I guarantee everybody, including myself, who speak anything speaks. Fauci admits modest U.S. funding of Wuhan lab. That's Fox. I don't want to see Fox on my damn screen. I also don't want to see CNN. You can't. What he had to do was almost impossible. You know. But I think a lot of things are messed up when he told people not to wear a mask, and even that they don't work, that they don't apply any safety. I understand you were trying to get, the mask to people in healthcare, but you went about it wrong. So Representative Warren Davison introduced the Fauci Incompetence Requires Early Dismissal Act, hilarious name, around the same time, saying in his statement, quote, Dr. Fauci represents everything that President Eisenhower warned us about in his farewell address. The scientific technical elites steering the country toward their own ends. Under Dr. Fauci's guidance, Americans have lost confidence in the NIT, the NIH, and the CDC, leading to confusion and serious government overreach that has threatened Americans' livelihoods and freedoms, Davis said in the statement, which I would totally agree with. Representative Guy Restmeiler, Republican from Pennsylvania, said this month that he discovered that the Obama administration funneled $1.1 million to the Wuhan lab through the Equal Health Alliance, also calling for the top scientist dismissal. Representative Guy also said he's bothered by Fauci's mixed messaging on mask wearing and his dubious reports on pandemic safety precautions and believe that doctors should step down. Quote, he's been wrong, intentionally deceptive, and inconsistent throughout the entire pandemic. A few examples of Fauci's failures include claiming there was very little risk to Americans in January of 2020, opposing President Trump's China travel ban, then crediting it with saving lives, and wrongly predicting an explosion of cases in Texas after Governor Abbott lifted his state mandate. So, yeah, I mean, that's true. Quote, it's a long past time for Dr. Fauci to stop talking to the American public. Fauci should resign or be fired immediately. On Monday, a CBS News reporter tweeted that Fauci told her that his belief about the natural origin of COVID hasn't changed, but that he supports a conclusive investigation. He believes, quote, he believes that it is highly unlikely that it first occurred naturally before spreading from animal to human. Since no one is 100% sure, he's open to a thorough investigation. So, I don't know, man. It's, I don't know. We will see. Fauci said, no, actually, I'm not convinced about that. I think we should continue to investigate what went on in China until we continue to find out to the best of our ability what happened. Fauci, the director of NIT, or National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases, told the interviewer at United Facts of America, a festival of fact-checking. So that's that. I don't know. I think living like a god is real is good, but I think pushing ideologies is dangerous. I think China is at fault for this. And I think repercussions should happen. I think people need to stop acting like China is this beautiful country. You know, it's a great country. I'm sure it's a fine country, but it's not. They're not out there doing the best for the world. That's all I have to say to that. I'm going to grow my hair out looking like Jason Momoa. So, thank you guys so much for listening. I will go ahead and end this podcast, and I'll see everybody in episode 197. Stay safe out there. Watch out for the Blue Angels if you're in Annapolis so they don't crash on your head. Enjoy the cicadas. They're talking. Thank you guys so much for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you guys in episode 197 of the Michael Lab Show. Peace out.